Hello, and welcome to the indicator training for state assessment results in reading and mathematics, and the state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing. I'm Melissa Chandler, and I'm a program consultant in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. This training is one in a series for the Kentucky Accountability System. There are 6 indicators that make up the Kentucky Accountability System, including state assessment results in reading and mathematics, state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing, English learner progress, post-secondary readiness, quality of school climate and safety, and graduation rate. This training will focus specifically on the state assessment results in reading and mathematics and the state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing. The Office of Assessment and Accountability developed this glossary of terms to assist educators when referencing and discussing the accountability system. I'll refer to these terms throughout the training, so be sure to come back to this slide as necessary to refresh yourself with definitions if needed. Let's take a look at the training agenda. I will provide an overview of the status component of the accountability system. I'll talk specifically about combined writing and accountability calculations. I will also give an overview of the change component of the accountability system, talking specifically about change score calculations, indicator performance rating, and overall score. So we'll start with status. The status score represents the current year academic outcome for a given indicator and is calculated according to the metric described in the performance level descriptor documents. Later in this training, I'll demonstrate how to configure the status for the indicators of the state assessment results in reading and mathematics and state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing. State assessment results in reading and mathematics are reported for elementary, middle, and high school levels. Proficiency in this indicator is defined as reaching the desired level of knowledge and skills as measured on academic assessments in reading and mathematics. The assessments referred to in that definition are KSA and AKSA. State assessment results in science, social studies, and writing are reported for elementary, middle, and high school levels. And proficiency in this indicator is defined as reaching the desired level of knowledge and skills as measured on academic assessments in the contents of science, social studies, and combined writing. Combined writing includes editing and mechanics and on-demand writing, which I'll discuss in more detail in the following slides. Combined writing is factored by combining on-demand writing and editing and mechanics. For each of these individual areas, students will receive a scale score, which is a number, and a performance level, novice, apprentice, proficient, or distinguished. Then the combined writing will be reported as a performance level only, novice, apprentice, proficient, or distinguished. The combined writing decision matrix displayed here gives the general guidelines for determining the overall writing performance level. This matrix was developed by teachers with consideration that the influence of on-demand writing should be greater than editing and mechanics. For example, if a student achieves a performance level of apprentice in editing and mechanics and a proficient on demand, their final performance level would be proficient, showing more influence being placed on the performance level in on-demand writing. State assessment results for the indicators of reading and mathematics, science, social studies, and writing are all assigned points. Novice will receive 0 points, apprentice receives 0.5 points, proficient 1 point, and distinguished 1.25 points. This is an example for a calculation of the state assessment indicator of reading and mathematics with an elementary school containing 200 students. In reading, we can see that there were 40 students who scored novice, 50 students who scored apprentice, 80 students scored proficient, and 30 students scored distinguished. We would take each of those totals by the number of points for that performance level to get a total number of points. So 40 students times 0 for novice points is 0 points. 50 students times 0.5 points for apprentice is 25 points. 80 students times 1 point for proficient is 80 points. And 30 students times 1.25 points for distinguished is 37.5 points. Adding all of the NAPD points together gives us 142.5 which we then divide by the number of students, 200, and we multiply this answer by 100, which gives us the status score for reading of 71.3. We do the same thing for mathematics, complete that same process. We add all the NAPD points together, which gives us 125, which we then divide by the number of students, 200, and multiply that answer by 100, which gives us the status score for mathematics, 62.5. Combining the scores for reading and mathematics, 71.3 plus 62.5 gives us a total of 133.8. We divide that by 2, once for the reading and once for mathematics, and that gives us a score of 66.9 for the indicator state assessment results in reading and mathematics. That number, 66.9, will contribute to an overall score using a proportional scale distribution or an accountability weight. The state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing will have a similar calculation. This is an example for calculation of the state assessment indicator of science and social studies and combined writing with an elementary school containing 200 students. After viewing the breakdown of the point configuration, you can see that they earned a total of 72.5 points in science, 68.8 points in social studies, and 66.3 points in writing. Combining the scores for science, social studies, and writing will give us a total of 207.6, which we will then divide by 3, once for the science, once for social studies, and once for writing, which will earn this example a score of 69.2 for the indicator of science, social studies, and writing. The numeric status score for each indicator in our example will then be assigned a color status level. Red is very low, orange is low, yellow, medium, green is high, and blue indicates very high. Here we have the elementary cut score table. We can see that the score of 66.9 for reading and mathematics falls into the yellow medium status level, and the score of 69.2 for science, social studies, and writing falls into the green high status level. Along with the elementary cut score table, I am also providing the status cut scores for middle schools and status cut scores for high schools. As a reminder, the cut scores for all levels were established in 2023 through a standard setting process, and the cuts that were determined at that time have not changed. So for this section of the training, I'm going to focus on change. We've reviewed the details regarding status, including information about combined writing and status accountability calculations. So let's move on to the specifics for change. I'll cover change score calculations, indicator performance rating, and finally, how to determine your overall score. The change score calculation is pretty basic. We just need to subtract prior year status score from the current year status score. You can see the formula here on the screen shows that calculation. Current year status score minus prior year status score equals change score. And although basic, this calculation is important because this is the process we'll use to calculate change for each indicator. Now, something to note here is that while we use the prior year scores to help us calculate change scores, prior year scores do not directly influence our indicator performance ratings. Their primary function is really to give us a benchmark or a point of comparison. So let's go through a change score calculation example. I'm going to use the status score for reading and mathematics that we calculated earlier. We determined that 66.9 was the current year status score for the reading and mathematics example. Let's say that the prior year status score was a 65. I would take 66.9 minus 65, which gives me a change score of 1.9. Now, for my hypothetical school, I've determined they have a 66.9 for current year status and a 1.9 for change. The numeric change score for each indicator is assigned a color change level. Red indicates declined significantly, orange declined, yellow maintained, green increased, and blue increased significantly. In our elementary reading and mathematics example, we calculated a change score of 1.9. Using the change cut scores for elementary schools, we can see that a change score of 1.9 for reading and mathematics falls into the green, increased change level. And along with the elementary cut score table here, I'm also providing the change cut scores for middle schools and the change cut scores for high schools. And as I shared with status, the cut scores were established in 2023 and those have not changed. Once we have determined status scores and change scores, the next step is to calculate the indicator score, which involves another basic calculation. We take the current year status score plus the change score to give us the indicator score. And this is the same formula that's used to calculate the score for every indicator. Later, I'll show you how we use these individual indicator scores to calculate the overall score. But first, let's take a look at an example of how to calculate an indicator score. I'm going to use the scores that we calculated in the previous slides as an example for how we will calculate an indicator score. We determined that 66.9 was the current year status score and 1.9 was the change score. So I will add those two scores, 66.9 plus 1.9, to give me an indicator score of 68.8. This table shows us how to find an indicator performance rating based on the combined change and status levels. You will likely become very familiar with this table because you'll reference it for each of your indicators. Down the left-hand side of the table, we have status ranging from very high to very low, and across the top, we have change ranging from decline significantly to increase significantly. Your indicator performance rating will be where status and change intersect on the table. As I mentioned earlier, we can find the overall score using the individual indicator scores. In order to do that calculation, we need to reference this table, which provides the overall accountability weights for each indicator at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. So let's see how these weights are factored into the overall score calculation. As the slide states, the overall score represents the combined outcomes across all applicable indicators with the appropriate weights combined. You'll notice that for this example, the indicator for reading and mathematics and the indicator for science, social studies, and combined writing are a different color. That's simply to highlight the indicators that we're discussing in this particular training module. To calculate overall score, you will first multiply each indicator score by the appropriate weight, which we took from the table on the previous slide. After you have those weighted scores for each indicator, you add them all together to get the overall score. For the elementary calculation, you will use the weighted indicator scores for reading and mathematics, science, social studies, and combined writing, EL progress, and quality of school climate and safety to determine that overall score. For the middle school calculation, just like the elementary, you will use the weighted indicator scores for reading and mathematics, science, social studies, and combined writing, EL progress, and quality of school climate and safety survey to determine the overall score. And finally, for the high school calculation, you will use the weighted indicator scores for reading and mathematics, science, social studies, and combined writing, EL progress, quality of school climate and safety, post-secondary readiness, and the graduation indicator to determine the overall score. The overall performance rating combines performance on the state indicators for elementary, middle, and high schools. These ratings will be communicated using a color rating system where blue represents the highest rating and red represents the lowest rating. The 5 performance levels from highest to lowest are blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. As we discussed earlier in this training, indicator performance ratings are also reported as colors, which is a result of a unique combination of status level and change level and not based on cut scores. And please note that the public school report card will be released later this year. However, the initial public release of assessment and accountability data will be in open house. This slide provides the overall performance rating cut scores. Again, these were established in 2023 and have not changed since. As I shared at the beginning of this presentation, this is just one module in the series of state accountability trainings. I encourage you to review each of the modules in this series to get the most comprehensive understanding of the Kentucky accountability system. This concludes the accountability indicator training for state assessment results in reading and mathematics and state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing. For any questions related to this training module, please contact me at melissa.chandler@education.ky.gov, and anyone in the office is happy to answer questions and provide support. Thanks for watching.